It's under section 712,
Yes.
parkland and open space. 711 is landscape and screening. Those have been added. And let's see, we're clarifying the pavement design requirements. And Hector, if there's anything in here that I missed, please feel free to chime in or give more information. We've updated our drainage plan requirements. We've developed policies for required maybe traffic studies based on the trip generation rates. There might be some development that's going to trigger traffic, increase in traffic, so we need to look at the safety and of that. So we've added that in there. And then of course, the development standards for the utilities, right-of-ways, hydrants, and light poles and streets. All of that is a summary of what you have in your subdivision ordinance. Next slide. That's it. Any questions? I will turn that over to our, Mr. Do you want to say some additional things? And Mr. Noriega, please.
Welcome, Jim, good to have you.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Mr. Reyes.
Yes.
I think one thing that was said, a lot of the changes that you see are triggered by state law. And so your ordinances are being updated to make sure they're in compliance with state law. The other important thing with a huge document like this, if I'm a citizen trying to develop a single house lot, I don't understand all of this. What you have is a very capable city staff who, if they are wanting to do something with their property, their first step is to come into the city and hold what we call a pre-development conference. And we can kind of show them how their particular plant, their particular situation can be addressed. In developing plants, there is a state law requirement that it be done by a engineer, licensed engineer, or a licensed surveyor. So and usually that engineer surveyor will bring their client to the pre-development conference. It was mentioned about variances, and variances are important. You can write all of the policies you want, but somebody's gonna be unique. And so they may wanna come in and say, my property, because it's shaped or configured this way or it has this on it, I think that I'm gonna be financially harmed. It's gonna create a hardship for me, and I want council to consider that. And usually that variance goes in before they spend the money on the plat. They need to know whether or not you're gonna approve it before they spend the money to go to the plat. So that leaves an opportunity for a resident to come in, resident or a developer to come in and ask questions. We always ask the engineer to read the ordinances, and most engineers who do development understand ordinances, whether they work San Antonio, Laredo, some other cities, the city of Converse, Windcrest, they understand that. Each city is a little bit different, but they generally follow the same guidelines, and so they'll be able to walk the customer through that. The developments that we've worked on since we've been involved with the city of Pearsall, once they understand what the city is looking for and what their ordinances are, they adapt and they develop the plat in accordance with the city's rules. So other than that, that's all. I'd like to show them available for questions along with Mr. Jaime Noriega, who's the vice president of my company.
Part of what we were into, just and on this end, council, we're not we have not been perfect with this by no stretch. Or even our processes, we know that they require work and they've been helpful. Leonard has been helpful. We are not on that to make sure that we point this out too. We know we're not San Antonio. We're not creating regulations or hardships or making it, at least our belief is we're not making it difficult for folks to develop or do anything. I believe it's an update to our existing to our existing ordinance, and there are some things that we are requesting that are a bit different, or some things that we may, again, the council may wanna consider, but there's other things that we know are gonna make things easier for folks that, and most of the projects we've seen primarily have been smaller projects. I think even with Leonard, there have been, a couple of lots. We haven't seen a subdivision come in, that somebody's looking at, building X amount of houses or whatever. So they've been relatively smaller projects that doesn't, I mean, again, not to say that these rules don't apply to even commercial properties, because they do. And again, I know on that end, we have not been perfect with this, but I think this is gonna make things better. And I do want to correct Ms. Moran on some of this, and just one thing, and Crystal, can you go to the Muni Code, go to Muni Code under go to the chapter 38, and just, and I know that if you ever wanna take, if you have trouble sleeping, please read this. This is chapter 38 of our ordinances, Code of Ordinances, and so if you ever look at this, part of what you'll find on chapter 38, if you look at, the very bottom, go down to the very bottom of that, where it has the dates, Crystal. If you look at the dates, those ordinances have not been updated since 9/8/76. So if you look at, unless there's another, so there's several sections of our code, of our ordinance that have that date of 9/8/1976. Now, there's some that I'm looking at here that date to 2014. There's maybe others, I think Ms. Moran may have pointed out, that date back, but there's a lot of sections here that are my age. Same. But it's just, it has been a long time since we've really taken a hard look of, and again, there may have been some hodgepodge of changes to the ordinance, but this is, the challenge for us has been, it's a pretty much a look at of what we have, and, making some revisions where they need to be made, and hopefully some improvements where they need to be made too. And it is a lot. It's a lot to absorb and to digest.
So I have a few questions. When we look at the regulation requirements coming down from the government, is those regulations that come in from the state, or the requirements from the law, should we say, is that pertaining to the same regulations across the board throughout the whole state, even if it's in small rural communities based on population based? I mean, is that consideration, or is this something that's just the same across the board?
It is statewide. Cities can do certain modifications to fit their city, and for instance, variances. Variances is given, cities can give variances, the state gives a guideline as to variances. Some are more stricter than others on variances. Some cities say, I really don't want to deal with variances, or other cities they want a lot of variances. They want discussions about properties and allowing them to happen. So state sets the parameters, guidelines. You do have some flexibility as to what you do with your ordinances, and I think that's what Mr. Reyes just mentioned. We're trying to make it easy for people who want to build, who want to develop within the city of Pearsall. But we want to make sure they do it in a planning way. We were talking to a developer a couple of weeks ago about sidewalks. Developer not necessarily wanted to build sidewalks, or they were looking at develop. Well, you gotta start somewhere with sidewalks. If you don't start, you're never gonna have it. So you get a development, and again, communities are changing. People like to walk in neighborhoods now. Nobody wants to walk in a ditch or in traffic and have their kids there. So if you're gonna build a subdivision, people now wanna see sidewalks. So you put sidewalks as part of your requirement. I know of some very upscale neighborhoods near Houston that don't require sidewalks. They chose to do that. They don't want sidewalks. They want kind of a rolling, kind of a rural field area. The homes there, $2 million on the bottom end. But that's a decision that they made, and that's kind of what you all need to do.
So are we looking at this, Fred, because for one, these haven't been updated since we were born? So now that we're trying to update, are we just, per se, we can say, honestly say we're catching up?
To some extent, and we're, again, part of that, what we want, and I'm glad folks are here, aside from us, to give up public input, because really, at the end of the day, we wanna, work with developers and say, hey, we wanna attract folks to build homes, businesses, or whatever the case may be. In saying that, the other part is the city as a council, this council, future councils, you wanna set, to some extent, a standard of what you wanna see. And I think that's where, the balance is setting your standard, at the same time, encouraging developers. And what I've heard from most developers, people that come to Pearsall, that want, the first thing they're asking us is, where are all these policies? Where are all these rules and regulations? And we can point them out to some, and others are like, well, we don't have those. They've asked us about sign ordinances, landscape ordinances, and the people that have come in that are, and I'd say that probably capable or have the dollars to do some of this, right? And even if you don't, they're looking for this stuff. And what we don't want is to be so arduous on both those developers or anybody that wants to do, any folks that are here in Pearsall that say, hey, I want to invest in, building a 5-acre subdivision, whatever. Using that as an example, but I think that's to me is the standard is trying to work with both and making sure that you develop or have a community where if you want to see sidewalks, hey, you want to see sidewalks. I'll give you another example. I'm going to use you guys, but Encino Drive has no sidewalks, right? Houses over there are nice houses, right? They're nicer homes. The lots are bigger. So when we start talking about this, and these are discussions we're having with some developers now, is, well, reducing lot sizes. I think right now the R1 is right now we're requesting. This is a different discussion, right? But it's all part of this whole. Is we want smaller lots? Do we want bigger lots? Do we want do we want to have any type of regulation on our streets as far as width, block sizes, all that stuff that I know that people think, well, just build a thing and it'll just happen. If you don't have some of these regulations or some of these rules, people will build what they have in their mind. And a lot of times it revolves around the bottom line, the money. And do I want to spend the money to build, to put sidewalk in, to put pavement in, if the city doesn't require it? I mean,
Well, I think one thing that Mr. Reyes is saying, what the regulation does, when you start setting standards, if you have a 3,000 square foot home and a development can come around it and build 1,500 square foot homes, can you keep the value of that 3,000 square foot home? Now, the 3,000 square foot home begins to lose value or not take off in value. The 1,500, it may creep up a little bit because it's got a 3,000 square foot home near it. But it's about protecting people's investments as well. If people build nice homes, you would like to see another nice home built around it. You'd like to see sidewalks around it. You'd like to see wide streets around it. So from a citizen standpoint, it's a way of protecting their investments in their home or business.
Council, you have any questions? We're gonna go to open session. Thank you very much. Get some comments with that. City Secretary, it is now 6:55. We are in open public hearing regarding the Charter 38 revised subdivision ordinance. Is there anybody from the cheering section that would like to come to the podium and cheer on this? Randy, if you would, state your name.
I'm Randy Reyes, not only now recently a citizen of Pearsall, because I was living outside in the county. I'm also in business, so developing construction, commercial and residential. As far as what I've heard input wise, I do believe it is time for move Pearsall back up into regulations with everybody else. I think you pointed out the dates on a lot of this stuff is back 76, 74, whatever. But we also got to also take into consideration if residents do come in or have come in prior and still haven't gotten this stuff taken care of, are we waiting on this to get approved on some of these regulations and holding it back? Or are those getting processed? And I'm not talking about only just subdivisions in general. I'm gonna speak personally. I have property outside of the ETJ, outside the city limits, that is already requiring utilities. A single piece of property, 1 acre, is not gonna be subdivided, the 1 acre. The seller has only sold another acre 5 years ago. So does that constitute a subdivision? If you look up the regulations, what is constituted as a subdivision, is it regulated in the guidelines right now? Does that halt those utilities because it's not falling under y'all subdivision ordinances?
You're talking about a specific case, and are you in the ETJ, or are you are in the ETJ? So, I guess we'd have to look at it, I assume it would apply to what we've got here.
Part of what you
If that would apply under this or under the regulations in place now?
the statute, and then you have what you have, and then I don't recall honestly some of this stuff, because we do hear about it at some point. You have particularly the ETJ, it is a tougher, to me, is a little bit tougher to regulate, in my opinion, but in saying that, what I think some of the landowners have done, they've cut and they've surveyed and they've cut properties up into 1 acre tracts. So somebody say owns 10 acres, right, or whatever, they own 10 acres and they cut them up into 1 acre tract. That's a subdivision. You've subdivided that tract.
If,
Now, in saying that, our challenge for us is on that, when we start talking to the engineering firms, is like, okay, we have water and wastewater out there. We don't, we're trying to see, one, can we support water and wastewater? Do we need a full-fledged plat? In this case, I would say that we want to see a plat. Now, could this be a short form plat? Probably so. But in saying that, those are the things that we don't have in place right now. If you look at the ordinance, as far as a short form, what Ms. Moran mentioned earlier, that's nowhere in the current ordinances. We don't have any short form, so anybody that wants to do what you're suggesting has to spend a lot of money. We're talking thousands of dollars, right? We know that you're paying an engineer or a surveyor or both to do this plat for you that has all of those requirements, which is, I think you've seen it. But in saying that, the short form will help some of the folks that are currently waiting. Now, I can't speak to your particular case, but I don't recall honestly, but I can say that Ms. Moran probably has about 3 or 4 applications that are currently waiting approval of this, because the short form part of this ordinance revision will help those people. It will not help people that want to subdivide tracts of, I think, 5 or more.
So the short form is 4 lots or less.
Yes.
If you've got more than that, then you don't meet the requirement of a short.
And,
You'll have to go
to
to
clarify, like, we wanna make sure that you understand subdivision, just the word subdivision doesn't mean 50 lots. You can have a 1 lot subdivision plat. So the subdivision plat is just a name for that property. It doesn't have, it doesn't automatically constitute like a 50, 60 lot one. So yes, yours would be a subdivision. It is.
it's a subdivision lot of 1 acre.
If
So
it's
a
1 acre,
lot.
it could be 2 acres, but it's a subdivision plat regardless. That's just the nomenclature for it, so, there's no difference in it. They have more requirements if they were to split that one up. If it's a 10 acre tract, they have more requirements. Yours would probably have a little bit less, but it's still a subdivision. It would be considered a subdivision, and it meets those requirements, so. Just, I wanted to make that clear.
And that's just for, I guess, I'm sorry, maybe I'm lost here. For the subdivision requirements, 1 acre lot, that is for being in the ETJ.
Mhm.
And what does the ETJ, as far as the city, provide for that property?
Are you talking about water, wastewater?
The improvements, meaning, because now it is a subdivision or a plot,
Yes.
what are the improvements?
The, so if we're talking about the new ordinance, yours would probably, if you have no utilities right now, right? If you have no water, sewer, or electric, anything like that, there's nothing in front of your property that you can just tie into, then yours would constitute like a full-blown plat, because you have to bring utilities over. And that would not, I mean, that would be.
How about we're talking utilities are there, everything's there, just.
If everything is there, then you would go with the short form. If you don't have to go, I think, like the city of San Antonio water system, I think if you go over 400 feet, you know, if you have to go over 400 feet or something like that, and that's something that's